Most businesses make the mistake of thinking their company's show has to be a series of these back and forth interviews every week. But this is a missed opportunity.
Introducing Recorded Content, a podcast for small, scrappy B2B marketing teams who want to get the most out of podcasting. In each episode, we capture stories from industry experts and podcasters. Listen in and uncover what it takes to launch, run, and grow a successful B2B podcast. Check out and subscribe to the show on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. Let's jump in.
Hey, I'm Tristan. I'm the co-founder of Motion and your host for this episode of Recorded Content. This show is brought to you by Motion, a done-for-you podcast agency for small, scrappy B2B tech marketers. Your company's podcast doesn't have to be a series of back-and-forth interviews. There are a lot of ways to share stories, and there are quite a few formats you can use to connect with your audience. But when you're trying to plan out your podcast recordings, where do you go to get inspiration for the actual topics for each of your podcast episodes? Well, today, I want to cover how to find inspiration for your company's podcast episode topics. Let's start by discussing the most important things to consider when identifying topics for your podcast episode. First and foremost, you need to focus on your ideal customers. If you want your company's show to have an impact on your business, you need to build the episode topics around the needs of your customers. That means thinking about what topics will be interesting and helpful to your target audience. To get some ideas for topics, you can ask yourself questions like, what are some common questions your audience asks you? What are some problems they regularly face with their specific role? What kind of content do they consume within your industry? And what resources do they turn to for inspiration at work? What are some things they're passionate about, such as trends in the industry or innovation? Effective podcast episodes stem from the challenges your customers face every day. So when you have this mindset in place, your marketing team creates every podcast episode with a very clear objective. Another thing to consider is having a guide for your podcast. So most businesses make the mistake of thinking their company's show has to be a series of these back and forth interviews every week. But this is a missed opportunity. Your company's podcast can be used to explore the issues and resolutions your customers face. That's why it's important to have someone who can really guide the conversation and go on this journey with your listeners. And this person is your host, and their role is to be the voice of reason in each episode, exploring the topic with your guests and pushing the conversation forward. So now that we've talked about some considerations for identifying topics, let's shift to where to find inspiration for your company's podcast episodes. From my standpoint, the answer is pretty simple. Topics for your company's podcast episodes can really come from everywhere. Your marketing team should constantly be on the lookout for inspiration, whether it's online, offline, or through the interactions they have with customers and employees. So let's think about some specific places you can look to get topic ideas for your company show. One is to identify blog posts with significant organic traffic. So does your company have a high-performing post? Is there a post that drives a lot of signups or conversions? Then maybe it's time to give this post a little bit of life in an audio or video format. Use a narrator to share the content in the post and weave in personal stories to add a little bit more context. Your company's podcast can be used as a way to drive traffic back to your website through these types of blog post repurposing type episodes. And if you want to take this even a step further, you can always invite the original author on as a guest to talk more about the post and pull in some more specific examples. So another source of inspiration is to dig into podcast episodes that have strong download numbers. What have been the best performing episodes recorded in the past? Ask yourself what specific segments in those episodes stand out to you and your listeners. Create an episode where you pull in previous quotes from these impactful episodes and maybe provide a new perspective this time. You can collaborate with an internal subject matter expert to provide even an additional layer. And when you look at older episodes, think about, is there a topic in one of these past episodes that was lightly covered but could be explored in more depth? This is really a great opportunity to go back and do a follow-up episode with some new insights. You can also invite the original guests back on to see how their perspective may have changed after some time has passed. Another source of inspiration is to review other podcast appearances. Does your leadership appear on other podcasts? If you had a great appearance on another show, you can create an episode that includes segments from that interview. But instead of just cross-posting the episode, you can add a custom intro and perhaps additional narration throughout to break it up specifically for your company's audience. Another source of inspiration is to pinpoint key changes in the industry that impact your customers. So think about, has your industry faced a big challenge recently? Is there some new regulation that will create a big impact on your customers? If so, bring on someone internally to react to a new challenge or industry trend. Your customers will always be looking for new perspectives when it comes to change, so you can give them what they want and be one of the first to provide valuable commentary on a specific change in your industry. This type of episode also demonstrates your company's expertise and establishes your company as a thought leader. You can also uncover the rationale behind specific product releases. Let's think about this for a second. There's a reason your company's product evolves. Your customers face new challenges, and your product continues to help in different ways. So with a podcast episode, you can showcase perspectives from your product team. You can identify new obstacles faced by customers and then discuss how your product overcomes them. You can pinpoint why your company prioritizes certain features and outline the benefits to customers. Your audience will appreciate the level of transparency, and it will give your product team a platform to share their work with the world. Another opportunity for inspiration is to explore challenges faced by your sales team. Your sales team interacts with customers every day. They know the challenges and objections customers have when they're considering your product. These challenges make for great podcast episode topics. You can spotlight a specific sales challenge in an episode and explore a range of perspectives, whether it's from your sales team or customers. Then the next time your sales team faces a similar objection, they'll have a podcast episode to lean on to share during the sales process. You can also go through your customer success mailbag. Your company's podcast isn't always for attracting new customers. One of the biggest mistakes companies make, I think, is forgetting their show can help their existing customers too. Your customer success team fields a lot of questions. So maybe it'd help to answer some of those questions in audio and video format using your company's show. By bringing on customer success representatives, you can involve your internal team and provide more education to your customers. And the last idea I have is analyzing a LinkedIn post and the comments. Did you see a LinkedIn post go viral in your industry? Why did it strike a chord? What were the different perspectives shared in the comments? A valuable LinkedIn post is a great way to spark a topic for a podcast episode. You can build a story around the post and capture feedback from your company's leadership or other team members during an episode of your company's podcast. Okay, so to wrap up today's episode, remember, when it comes to producing a podcast for your company, the key is to focus on your ideal customers and the guides that'll help them solve problems. By keeping these two things in mind and constantly searching for inspiration, really in a lot of different places, your marketing team can create every podcast episode with a very clear objective. Well, that's all I have for today. I hope to see you next week on Recorded Content.
Thanks for listening to Recorded Content, a show brought to you by Motion, a done-for-you podcasting agency for B2B tech marketers. We do the podcast stuff so you can focus on strategy, building brand awareness, and developing new relationships. To learn more about how you can launch and grow a podcast for your company, check out motionagency.io. Thanks for listening to Recorded Content.